Can you believe that Rob Zombie actually almost made a remake of this film? What the hell would that even look like? So the Blob tells the story of a gelatinous pink alien life form that takes over a small town. Alright guys, well the Blob is a movie that I have wanted to check out for a very long time. This is actually a first time watch for me. I did not grow up with this film. I didn't grow up with the 1958 version, never seen that one either. I've always seen posters or pictures or references to this film. Always intrigued me. And luckily the good folks over at Scream Factory are always there for us horror fans, delivering some of these classics, these cult classics, or these out-of-print movies that we otherwise wouldn't be able to get a hold of. And I bought the Blob release a couple of months ago, put it on my shelves, totally forgot about the damn thing. Was looking for a movie the other day, passed by it and said it is time to check out the Blob, and now I'm here with my thoughts to discuss it with you. Before I do all that, check out my social media links down below, guys. Please, in the video description, it's got all of my social media, including the link to my Patreon page, which is the best way to support this channel and to show this channel some love and keep it going and get some cool exclusive content for your eyes only. I just filmed a Patreon review just before I filmed this one, which is an exclusive privilege to everybody that is in my Patreon and certain tiers. So check out all of those perks, ways that you can help support this channel and get some cool Cody Leach shit thrown your way for your loving support. On top of that, if you enjoy this review, be sure to let me know on the way out by clicking that like button and hitting that subscribe button so you can stick around for more bloody goodness on this channel. Now, with all that out of the way, The Blob. So this is a remake to a film from the late 50s. Again, like I said, I've never seen that one, but what intrigued me about this one is that it was directed by Chuck Russell, the guy who made Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street film. He co-wrote that film, came in to direct it. He co-wrote this one. I believe he also co-wrote it with Frank Darabont, much like Part 3, which is, again, very interesting, some of the early beginnings of Frank Darabont. But nonetheless, Chuck Russell is what brought us the 1988 Blob, so I said, God, the movie he followed up Dream Warriors with, I must check this thing out. Popped it in, and this is a really cool little throwback 80s creature feature. There's not too many of those nowadays. They pretty much seem to live and be embodied in the 80s. And this one is one of the more unique ones in a sense that it's a monster that doesn't really have a personality. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't have some badass, cool, like practical effect design that's gonna stick in your nightmares. It's literally pink ooze, which in and of itself, the way that they bring that to life is a cool practical effect. But this is a monster that for all intents and purposes is lifeless and faceless. And how are you going to make this intimidating? How are you going to make this a cool villain? How are you going to bring this type of creature to a horror film and make it effective? Well, as far as the first positive of this film, they do, because of the gore and the practical effects and the few kills that we get in this. Was not expecting them to be as kick-ass as they were. You think of the Blob, and I walked in with the assumption that it's probably just gonna be this pink ooze. It's gonna swallow people up. It's gonna get bigger the more people that it eats. You're just gonna see bodies floating around in the ooze, the more people that it takes over. And it's gonna be about that. It's probably gonna be cheesy and campy and fun. And it was all of those things. But while it's enveloping this person and while it's taking people over, it also has this acidic nature to it, to where you have limbs being melted and falling off. You have a guy that gets his face grabbed by it, and he gets his entire body pulled through the drain of a sink. Yeah, bones and body parts all clicking and clacking together to go through a hole this big, and it shows it, and it looks real. Even some of the spots where you see the aftermath, where you see the Blob sitting somewhere and you see somebody's body kind of getting enveloped in it. It starts to like melt their skin and it becomes part of the Blob, or somebody's mid-kidnap point where the Blob is taking them in and they're reaching out for help and their face is all stretched back like somebody that just had fucking plastic surgery, and you're like, whoa, oh, that looks weird. The kills and the effects that were used to bring all that to life, to me, was the most memorable part of this film. That's what I liked about it the most, and that's what I will remember it for the most. Beyond that, I like the tone that it goes for. You know, this is in the late 80s. This is Chuck Russell, who brought a more fun element to Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. To me, like I've already said, my favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So he kind of brings a little bit of that mishmash tone over into this. Certainly much more silly and much more fun tone than Dream Warriors was. But this is a movie where you can watch, and it's not like it's trying to take itself too seriously. And it lets you know very, very early on that you should not take it too seriously as well. Just sit back and enjoy this goofy little creature feature that has the 80s cheese, that has some of the hallmarks and the tropes of that genre, of that era. And it's just fun. It's an enjoyable movie. If you pop this in on a Saturday night with some of your friends or whatever, it's a movie that you can all just kind of shovel some popcorn into your face and have a good time with. And you ain't got to worry about who's scared of horror movies or who's not going to be able to handle the Blob. Fuck that. Everybody can handle this. Pop it in, have a good time. And story-wise, I thought the movie took some interesting twists and turns here and there. There was nothing that blew my mind. It was nothing that I haven't seen before. Obviously, I've seen a lot of movies since 1988 that have done some of the same twists and turns, so maybe this is one of the precursors where it was kind of original at the time. But even after watching it in 2020 for the first time, I look at it and there's certain twists, there's certain little plot elements that get thrown in involving the government and, you know, these dudes in hazmat suits and the true origins of the Blob that I thought was interesting enough. The movie could have been lazy and it could have just said it's a meteorite that falls down, it's got an alien in it, and we'll just let it loose. But the movie tries to do more than that. It tries to give some explanation. It tries to have some twists and some intrigue and, you know, some directions that maybe you weren't expecting, and they pull it off pretty well. Now moving on to some of my negatives with the film, to where I really only have a couple of them. Overall, I did enjoy this one. There's a lot of great practical effects with the Blob, but I do feel like some of the digital effects that they have in it do not age quite as well. There's some scenes that are very clearly green screen where they have the Blob in the background and you have an actor that kind of jumps in and looks around and then scampers away, and it doesn't age very well. You can kind of see the way that they've keyed them out. I also feel like the movie blows its load a little too early with the kills. Like the first 3 or 4 kills are awesome in this, and then the last half of the movie feels like it kind of loses that a bit. There's not as much that was awesome or as gory or as shocking or as cool to look at as the first half of the kills, to where that's a little bit disappointing. I feel like you should save some of your bigger guns for the finale of the film. This one kind of takes the reverse approach. And my final negative is that although I do enjoy this, and although I did like the ride, and I did think that this was a fun movie that I can just kind of pop in whenever and have a good time with, I didn't find myself that invested or that enjoying the characters all that much. You have very much caricatures in this. You have the rough around the edges guy that nobody trusts, and the, you know, the law of the town's always picking on. He's got the mullet. You've got the, you know, star athlete who seems like he's going to be the lead of the movie for a little while. You have the girl next door. You have the sheriff. There's not really anything in here character-wise that subverts expectations or even characters that you can really invest yourself in that much. They're just kind of there to be typical 80s characters and to take on the Blob. And they serve their purpose well for that. For me, who I like story and characters above anything else, I could have used a couple of characters in here that I can at least remember the movie for beyond just the gory kills. So overall, guys, this is a movie that I enjoyed. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more and it would have been something that I would have liked a little bit more if I had grown up with it, if I had watched it as a kid and I had a little bit of a nostalgia factor in there to bump my score up a bit. But even watching it for the first time over 30 years after it came out, I still dug this. I still enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I saw the tone that they were going for and I enjoyed it for that. The kills were very cool and kind of unexpected. I thought for a faceless, nameless villain, the Blob actually served its purpose really well. And it's just an enjoyable film from that era that reeks of that era in all of the best ways. Not the best characters, certainly some effects that haven't aged very well, and I think the movie's front-loaded its kills, which I never quite enjoy very much. I think you should save your big guns for later, but overall, this is a film that if you like creature features and if you like 80s era horror films, I would say to definitely check this thing out. So if you like the original Blob from the 50s and haven't yet seen this one, or if you just like creature feature films or horror films from the 80s era, check this thing out. There's a lot of things to enjoy about it. Not a classic of the genre or of that era, but certainly one that you will enjoy checking out. So find this thing online and stream it. So what do you guys think of the Blob? Is this a bona fide classic for you? Is this one of your favorite horror remakes? Do you have that nostalgia factor that I'm obviously missing? Or are you kind of on the same page with me and think that it's a really cool movie of that era, doesn't necessarily bring it home as one of the classics? Let me know down below and we will discuss the Blob. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on the way out if you enjoyed this review, and for now, and as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.